What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are going to be reviewing PFN's brand new mock draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You guys know how to use YouTube. We're on the way to 10K. Would love to be able to get there. Below my face is my board. Below that is all the great ways to get involved with the community, as well as take advantage of our two sponsors, Olipop and UnderDog Fantasy. I have to speed this up a little bit because I have my graduation ceremony tonight and tomorrow morning. So thank you guys for all the love and support that you always give me. This show has been an integral part of my collegiate career, and now it will be also a big part of my adult career. So very excited to be able to continue this and potentially make this my full-time job in the future. But only you can make that happen. So let's make it happen. Going on and starting out with the mock draft, the Bears start out with the #1 overall selection, select Marvin Harrison Jr., no trade out. For me, I think this is perfectly fine. I love Justin Fields. I think that's the right way to go. The question is, how much do you believe in Justin Fields? I believe in Justin personally. I'm not saying that to cater to my Bears fans. Like when I see him, I really am starting to see a flourishing quarterback. The question is, do you want to pay a quarterback $50 million off of one legitimate year of production next year? That's the tough question. And that's why this is such a controversial pick, right? It's not Trevor Lawrence where, I mean, it's the value almost of Trevor Lawrence with Caleb Williams because people really do believe, including myself, that he could ascend into that territory, right? But at the same time, like this team doesn't necessarily need to go after a QB. And I know there's some Justin haters out there. There's a Justin truthers who think he's like already a god. He's getting there for sure. But this is, as you can see, a live reaction. We're going to continue on and see what else happens. For me, I am perfectly fine with the Bears sticking with Justin Fields and going Marvin Harrison Jr. New England Patriots go Drake May. So just like I did in this past week's mock draft, feel free to check that out. Ended up opting to go Drake May over Caleb Williams for the New England Patriots. Not saying that that's a move that I personally would make, but it does feel almost like it's a move that the Patriots would make. That being said, if Bill ends up being removed and, there's a new system that's going to be in place, there is a chance that they could be opting to go away from the Patriot way. It's very likely. So keep an open mind about that. But Drake May, he has the upside. He just needs to get so much more consistent. That's his biggest issue. He's just way too inconsistent for me. Could end up being like Justin Herbert and end up ascending to being a really, really talented quarterback. But, for me, I don't like rolling the dice on guys I don't trust unless you have a really trusted coaching staff, which God knows how the hell Justin Herbert ended up panning out. That dude was not consistent at all at Oregon, but that's a conversation for another day. Drake May could end up being just like that. That's my comp for him, is a worse version of Justin Herbert. And, for New England, it's going to be a big-ass upgrade. We got the Cardinals then going Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. With the options on the board, going offensive tackle, it's not a bad move at all. DJ Humphries should be getting the F out of there. I personally would want to go right tackle, but I do understand at pick 17 or wherever that next pick is going to be, it's going to be a little bit tougher to replace that right tackle spot and move Paris back to left versus, hey, get two elite tackles. Let Paris develop at right tackle and have a star left. So Joe Alt, he's a great solid selection, man. I mean, he's just super consistent, 6'8", just a behemoth of a man. Not necessarily the most flashy guy on planet Earth, but I always say this, don't overthink it. If you get a solid offensive tackle who has good enough movement skills, like just be happy. Not many teams have that luxury, and the Cardinals might have two very, very high upside offensive tackles. Pick number 4, the Commanders go Latu. I do understand this pick, actually. The more the edge rushers start returning, and, it's just that second tier. I was about to say, hey, they have 2 picks at the end of the first. And granted, I would prefer if they ended up either trading back and getting an edge rusher or, trading up with one of those picks. It is what it is. I do understand, though, that tier that would be available at 36 and 37, I believe, is not going to be remotely close to the talent level that was there before Landon Jackson and Princely Umanmielen decided to return. There's a massive gap now in that tier 2, or that, round 2, that day 2 type of edge rusher. Latu, I'm not there yet. Haven't been there. Not there yet still. But I do understand it. Great size, great production, great length. Overall, just a freak. So, again, perfectly fine with the logic behind the pick because this team does need it. But when you do have a star offensive tackle on the board and your offensive line is kind of butt cheeks, probably the best move that you can make is to go after offensive line. So I'd prefer to go that way. But again, edge rusher is going to be that positional group number 2. Bears then go Dallas Turner. I'm fine with that as well. That tier 2, well, what's going to be available for the Bears over in the 3rd round is not going to be most likely starter quality. So getting an impact player on offense and defense at both very high valued positions is fine with me. I think this would be a very, very solid draft choice for him. Dallas Turner is my number 4 player, so they end up getting my number 1 and number 4 at number 1 and number 5. At pick number 6, the Vegas Raiders go Caleb Williams. Highly doubt that he ends up being here, of course. I do think that there's a strong chance the Commanders would end up taking him if he is there. But again, a conversation for another day. The Raiders go Caleb Williams. If he's there at 6, that is a home run selection. At pick number 7, the New York Jets select Olu Fashanu. Should have been taken earlier, but if he's there, that's the pick to make. New York Jets could not think twice about adding a surefire protector there in Olu Fashanu. At pick number 8, the New York Giants go Malik Neighbors. He's a very, very solid player. I'm not going to shame the Giants for this. I would prefer to go Jane Daniels because I think that the biggest wins above replacement position is that quarterback position, and you still have a very talented quarterback on the board. Once it gets into Bo Nix territory, I do agree. I personally like Bo Nix quite a bit, but he's worse to me than Jaden Daniels. So I, of course, would go Jaden Daniels in this situation. But Malik Neighbors, he's a talented player. You're going to be getting a massive asset. You know that. But the question is, does it equate to wins? I don't believe so. So I would just feel kind of bad because, again, it's going to almost be like wasted talent like OBJ, but, it is what it is. Well, OBJ wasn't a wasted talent. I'll take that back. But he didn't end up winning any Super Bowls. And, that's where it really sucks because it's like a Super Bowl level talent, not being able to make the Super Bowl. Titans then go J.C. Latham, perfectly in support of this pick. Offensive lines where I'll go with Tennessee till the day I die. They need it desperately, and they have a lot of other positions pretty well locked down. Chargers go Terrion Arnold. He is my corner 1 of the draft. I am in, again, full support of this pick. It's rare for me to be saying that so many times so early, but it is what it is. The Chargers going after a superstar corner who's also a corner number 2, so he'll work well with Asante Samuel. I'm a huge fan. Huge fan. So Terrion Arnold, great pick there. Atlanta Falcons, Jaden Daniels. There we go. There's the thumbnail, baby. Super excited. I've been waiting to deploy a Atlanta Falcons Jaden Daniels jersey swap pick on the thumbnail. Super excited for it. But this is a massive upgrade. This is probably the best player that you could possibly imagine falling to the Falcons at 11. At pick number 12, the Saints go Jared Verse. They do need to get a little bit of extra help on the edge rushing room because Cam Jordan's getting older. Peyton Turner's he's not healthily reliable. And, it's not, you do have some guys in there like Passignon and for Granderson as well, who honestly are extremely underrated, but you need to get somebody who's a marquee edge 1 for the future. And, because Cam Jordan's just not going to be around forever. Jared Verse is spectacular. I would say I would go after Bo Nix before this because I think he's an upgraded version of Derek Carr. But, because basically you're going to get what you're hoping for out of Derek Carr, out of Bo Nix. But again, if you're going for a second pick, Jared Verse is really, really solid. Seattle Seahawks going Jerzon Johnny Newton. I know my Seahawks fans are in full support of this one as well. I do put my stamp of approval on it. Jerzon Newton, even if they keep Leonard Williams, they definitely should be adding some extra meat to that defensive interior. I'm telling you, Jerzon Johnny Newton is a special, special talent. If you don't keep Leonard Williams, then this makes even more sense. But Seattle Seahawks don't need very much. I would be in the market for Bo Nix in this territory because, again, I think he's a better version of Drew Lock, better version of, what's his name, Derek Carr. So, that's where my head's at. But this is still an amazing pick that I've made myself. Rams go Marius Mims. I did get some pushback for taking right tackle to the Rams on J.C. Latham because of the fact Havenstein's been playing well. You don't have to keep right tackles at right tackle. And again, if there's a good left tackle, if you have a talent level like 95% is good left tackle as a right tackle, and you need a left tackle, take the left tackle. If there's a noticeable gap, which I would say is roughly like 15 or maybe 10%, it just depends on like how damn good that right tackle is. If there's a gap that's like 10 to 15% or more, then you take the right tackle and move him to left, right? You take the best talent. Sometimes guys just don't translate, hence why it's like I assume they're going to get a little bit worse, and then that is why you can evaluate it. I think Amarius Mims will work perfectly fine as a left tackle. I'm perfectly fine with this pick. At pick number 15, the Broncos go Talise Fuaga. So he would also probably move to left tackle. Again, kind of like BPA. I don't think that you need to go after tackle anymore unless a left tackle is available. I would be going after a corner 2 or a wide receiver 1, primarily wide receiver 1. I love Cortland Sutton. Again, SMU, pony up. But at the same time, I do believe that, the Broncos need a little bit more than him and then Tim Patrick, who's not very reliable health-wise, and then, Jerry Jeudy if he is going to be there at all. So, there's just a lot larger of a need. And when you have a lot of really good receivers on the board still, I'd be preferring to go after someone like Emeka Egbuka, Romo Dunze, etc. At pick number 16, the Cardinals go Keon Coleman out of Florida State, included with that list I should have mentioned with the Broncos. Cardinals end up taking a big swing on this one and end up getting a home run. He's going to complement every single receiver there so well. He adds the size. He adds the jump catch ability. He's essentially going to be DeAndre Hopkins for you. Worst route runner, but, he is a very, very talented player. He was my number 35 player coming into the year before he took a rep at Florida State. I loved him over at Michigan State. He was just one of those guys I was like, who the hell is this guy? And you know what? He's a stud. I'm a big fan of what happens when, one of the few things I like about the transfer portal is when guys go to places where they can end up being their best selves. A lot of times now, well, especially with NIL, people are going where the money is, like Colorado, and that irritates the living hell out of me, but sometimes things actually work out for all the best, like Keon Coleman. Next, we got the Bills going Kool-Aid McKinstry. So I'd be going wide receiver 2 here with Romo Dunze, even though I don't like Romo Dunze that much. Again, to be fair, I need to reevaluate him. The games I was evaluating him, bro had a broken rib and a punctured lung. I mean, straight up, you're not going to perform like yourself with that. Like, big props to him. So, again, TBD on Rome. I would still select him here over Kool-Aid McKinstry. And Kool-Aid's my number 10 player in the draft, right? I love Kool-Aid McKinstry. He's going to be a massive asset to the Bills. I've taken Kool-Aid myself to the Bills. But I would prefer to go after a star wide receiver because I do think the Bills, they have guys who can still develop into some star corners there. They don't really have much in terms of that receiving room besides, I mean, of course, they're tight ends, Stephon, like prima donna Diggs. I cannot stand his, we'll get past it. Bengals then go Brock Bowers. Oh, I forgot Brock was on the board. Oh, man. If he falls to pick 18, I know the NFL is rigged. Just going to call it out. That's some BS. You see Brock's my number 2 player. You know my opinion on Brock. But, God, if the Bengals somehow pull this off, I think the Buffalo Bills would see this and say, screw it. We're taking Brock. We're having Dalton. We're having Knox. We are having all of these guys on our squad. We're going 31 set at this point. The Bills would definitely do that because no way in hell would I let the Bengals get Brock Bowers. No way. Packers then go Nate Wiggins. I mean, I do think a corner 2 is not out of the realm. I think safety and return man with Cooper DeJean is just, you're getting kind of a 2 or 3 for 1 because you get 2 different returners, essentially, with Cooper DeJean. And that gets rid of Keyshawn Nixon. Hallelujah. And then you also get to use him as a safety. By the way, a lot of the logic that I use comes from you fans who actually watch so intricately because I'm a fan of 32 teams. You're a fan of 1. It makes sense for me to really trust those of you guys where when I end up watching your guys' games, I could see how smart a lot of you are. So I really do appreciate that input and talking about how Keyshawn Nixon's an absolute bum just makes my content feel so much better than, if I was able to, just simply deduct stuff only from what I see. It's just a lot more fun when I get to involve you guys in the process. So pick 20, the Buccaneers go Michael Penix. I think that Bo Nix is a better player by a long shot at this point. Michael Penix, there's something about him that I don't fully believe in. He's still a top 64 player. I still believe that he could end up being a starter. But, in terms of day one, lacks of mobility, there's just too much inconsistency for my liking. We'll just put it that way. I do like what he does offer in terms of the actual ball velocity, but he has a lot of technicality issues, a lot of mechanical issues that I am just not a huge fan of. Indianapolis Colts and go Rome Odunze. That'd be a really solid pairing up with Michael Pittman Jr. I would be a fan of this. I have taken someone who's also 6'3", but 227 pounds instead of 211. He's not 215. In Xavier Legette to have a similar role as Rome Odunze in the squad as this big potential X deep threat. At pick number 22, the Vikings go Chop Robinson. Again, with Bo Nix on the board, that's going to be the biggest wins above replacement position to go. But Chop Robinson is a pretty good consolation prize. He is an absolute freak show. Bring back Danielle Hunter, my lord, that's going to be ridiculous. Because again, Danielle Hunter knows how to maximize the skill set of Chop Robinson. Probably one of my favorite landing spots for Chop to end up, if not my favorite. At pick 23, the Steelers go Graham Barton, center out of Duke/tackle. No need to say that he is a guard. He would definitely be a center. So, I mean, it says it there at the bottom. Don't know why it just doesn't say center there, but again, it is what it is. I would be going, honestly, after a corner here in Kalen King because of the fact that you can get a good center later on. There's some good centers in this class. Versus corners, it does drop off a cliff significantly. I trust interior offensive linemen to develop down the board. I rarely trust corners to really develop who are taken down the board, unless they're high on my board. So there you go. Houston Texans go AD Mitchell here at 24. I think he'd be a good complement to Tank Dell and, Nico Collins in there. I got to study him before or restudy him because he does have an official grade, but got to restudy him for later parts of this year in order to get an official grade on him because he's wide receiver 10 right now. He's a very good wide receiver, top 64 on my board. But I do feel like when you do have some guys like Chris Jenkins, Tavondre Sweat, or, even some really good corners who could be corner 2 for the future on this team, I think it's a better value than AD Mitchell. And then you could, if you really want to get someone of a similar stature, I know he's a little bit shorter, but he's a little bit bigger, in Emeka Ibuka, who already has chemistry with CJ, I'd be opting for one of those routes. Then we got Kansas City Chiefs drafting Tavondre Sweat to pair up with Keandre Coburn. So that's a pretty much 700 pounds of just dude that they've drafted over the past 2 years from Texas. That'd be kind of wild. I don't think they need it that desperately, but I'm not going to shame them if they go that route. I would prefer to go Emeka Ibuka, a star receiver in this situation, but Tavondre Sweat, again, pretty damn solid number 2 choice. Brian Thomas going to the Jaguars. I'm not a huge fan of Brian Thomas. I'll scroll down on my board so you guys get to see a little bit more. Not a fan of Brian Thomas that much. He's in my 80s to 90s range. He's a solid receiver, but he's a good deep threat, good size. He's just not a good route runner. He's just not nuanced there yet. And he doesn't have a really good release package. Naturally, the intricacies of the game are not something that he's very familiar with. I'm someone who, against why you'll see guys like Jermaine Burton up so high. And, if I continue scrolling down, I have Jacob Cowing really, really high. It's because these guys who spend so much time working on the art of being a receiver, like the route running, the release package, etc. Also why I ended up loving Johnny Wilson so much. That to me, like similar to how some of y'all have a type, like whether it's going to be, the big booty people or the big booty people. But you guys know what I'm talking about. Like some people like a little thinner ladies. Some people like the bigger booty ladies. Do your thing. I like them all. My type is attractive women. That's what I say. But that's a topic for another day. Or on the Discord. So feel free to join that because we do talk about random shit like that all the time. For me, my type in terms of receivers is going to be after those route runners. The guys who really focus on the intricacies of the game. And Brian Thomas hasn't done that. So that explains why I'm not over the moon about him. But still a good player. I think that, again, just a little bit early, it would be a player I'd love for the Jaguars in round 2. Detroit Lions ain't going Cooper DeJean. He's going to be a safety to me, and I don't think this is the right spot to go after a safety. Again, with Kalen King on the board, I'd be opting for that and essentially waiting to get a true corner 1 because I think Kalen King could be that. But at 5'11", you might want to have him be an elite level corner 2. Still, you're going to get an upgrade. Cooper DeJean would be an upgrade as well, but I'm just a little bit more worried about him as a pure corner. I think he'd be an elite tier safety as well as return man. Eagles going Kamari Lassiter, after James Bradbury's bum ass doing absolutely nothing, or actually doing the exact opposite of nothing, doing negative stuff for the team. Like he's just a liability. I'm not against this pick. I do believe that going after the edge rushers that are available, like Braylon Trice, that's going to be a little bit more valuable. But again, you can't go wrong with Kamari at this point. He's another Georgia corner, so you'll have that continual chemistry with Keely Ringo when, even Slay decides to leave. I don't know enough about Kamari's personality, but personally, when I look at it, I want to find someone for the Eagles that has that dog in them because I don't see it on the Eagles anymore. I don't see that guy who lights a fire under the ass of the defense like Chauncey. Like Chauncey was that guy who would just be bitching at people 24/7. And yeah, that caused some issues here and there. But ultimately, when you needed to fire up the team, they were fired up. When they lost, he was the guy who was like going ballistic, kind of like Antonio Brown online. And sometimes you need that fire. This team I don't see the Eagles with that same fire in their belly that they had. And I hope Kamari maybe has that personality, but that's what I really be targeting, whether it's in the first, second, third round. I don't know. I'm just going to try to find somebody who could be an emotional leader for the team and get them riled up. But Kamari Lassiter would just still be a very solid pick. Dolphins go Jordan Morgan. It depends on your outlook on Terron Armstead, whether he can last. That's the ultimate decider as to whether you're going Jordan Morgan here, going interior offensive line here. That's the real thing that's up in the air. That's a real debating factor here. So I don't trust Terron Armstead's health for the long run. I would go Jordan Morgan because I think a left tackle is extremely valuable. You can kick him to the inside until that tackle is ready. I'd be happy with this. So that's where I'm at with that pick. Kingsley Suamataia is a Cowboys pick. I am very happy with this one as well. If you end up getting an injury to right tackle as well, he has comfortability there. He's had experience there. That is something I'd be a big fan of. And he was also good at right tackle. Evan Neal, he had his struggles at right tackle. Kingsley was actually really solid there. So I'd be, again, in support of this pick, a really solid one for the Cowboys because you need a future at left tackle, but also someone who could fill in elsewhere. Patrick Paul for the Niners. I took him in the second round for the Niners, and I felt kind of bad because I just don't think Patrick Paul has the athleticism required in order to be a high-tier NFL offensive tackle. I said the same thing about DeJuan Jones before I saw him in the Senior Bowl. And when I saw DeJuan just look so much more refined and so much better of an athlete, like some of these guys just do not know how to take care of themselves in college. They go into this pre-draft process, they get a nutritionist, they get another personal trainer, and these guys end up really working on their bodies and looking incredible, like Jordan Davis, for example. I am more than willing to change my opinion once I see that happen. And he has one of these, I think he's going to the Senior Bowl. So we'll see him at the Senior Bowl where I'm super stoked to see if, hey, maybe he has improved his athleticism. Maybe he has improved his form. And that could totally soar him up my board and make this pick great. But for right now, don't see that with him just yet. When you do have a top-tier corner like Kalen King, I would add that to the repertoire. And then the Ravens going Xavier Legette. I'd be scared shitless as a Steelers fan if I saw Xavier Legette in a Ravens uniform. He could actually take over the Odell Beckham Jr. role in terms of being like a deep crosser threat, but also just essentially being a wide receiver one. This scares me. Genuinely, it scares me. I would probably opt for Kalen King over him, but I don't know. This actually is a really good pick. And I got to admit, this draft had a lot of really solid picks. I did not expect, because I didn't recognize the name at the top. We'll give him some credit. We'll scroll up to the top. We'll give this guy some credit. Because I have a couple guys, both of the Ians there, Valentino and Cummings, who I'm a big fan of. Both are great guys. I've never heard about this Joe Broback, but I got to give him some credit. There are some picks in here I absolutely do not agree with. Some crazy things like Brock Bowers falling. But, again, there's always going to be something to poke at. This was actually relatively solid. So, again, shout out to Joe because I haven't seen him doing many of these. Maybe he has, but, if this is one of his first few ones, shout out to you, Joe. Fix up a couple things, but overall, much better than some of the other shit that we've studied in this series. So thank you so much for watching, supporting this show as always, Tongue Twister. See you on the far side.